Well, switching gears, welcome, Polina. Polina, you work in our quality assurance team, and you go really deep into the features and take a look at them and help us try to improve the performance. And you're joining us today to talk a little bit about how spaces and categories work. These are some features that you've spent a lot of time with. And do you have any advice or things you'd like to share before we jump right in?
Thank you, Rich, for introduction. No, I'd like to just jump right in. I'm gonna try to do a little more newbie-like presentation about spaces, since we looks like we have some newbies online today. So spaces. Spaces is a new feature in our current 24.0 Mylio version, and it is an incredibly powerful feature that allows you as a user to take even more control over your library. Spaces will be available in the free version of Mylio with reduced functionality. And if you want to enjoy full capabilities of Spaces, you will need to be a Mylio Photos Plus user. So what are Spaces for, and how can you use them? Whether you are a sole user of your library, or if you choose to share your library with friends and family and coworkers, this feature can help you further refine and organize your library. You can choose to display limited content. For example, separating your library into family and work and private spaces based on categories. And at the same time, keep your library and your memories protected. For example, if you hand your device to someone, you want to at least make sure that they cannot delete anything, any of your memories, and you keep them safe. So I'd like to share my screen now, if that is possible.
Yep. Angela, you just have to promote her to co-host if you haven't.
On it, 1 second.
And while that's happening, the whole logic here is that we tried to make it easy that you can divide things into simple buckets of personal, family, and work, but you could make your own buckets as well if you're using the Plus plan, if you want to have a specific project for a job that you're working on, or you want to narrow things down a bit.
Okay. Right. I was going to get to that. So you can see my screen now, right? I'm going to try to
absolutely
make it large. So I'm going to be presenting on the desktop. And in the desktop, access into Spaces is available in the left navigation panel right here. But like I said, Spaces will be available in the mobile version of the application as well. And it is available in the top right menu with 3 dots, more. Right now, you will not be able to see it because I'm on a desktop. So the active space, I might have to make it a little smaller because I cannot see the header here. The active space that you're currently in is displayed at the top of the header right here. We are currently in the public space. And whether you install Mylio as a new user, or if you upgrade from an older version, you will enter a public space. So what is a public space? It is everything in your library that is not marked with a private category. So for example, let's take any picture right now in Mylio Photos view, open right panel, and assign a private category to this picture. This is the difficult way, the long way I'm doing this. And as soon as I apply it, this picture will disappear because the space does not allow anything that marked as private to be shown on stage. So it is displaying limited content. You can make it, you can assign a private category in a simpler way by right-clicking and hiding a photo. You can do the same operation on folders, albums, and events as well.
And we ask you to confirm that hide each time, just because we don't want you thinking that it deleted it, in case you misclicked. So they're not permanent. You can bring them back and we can reveal those, but you are hiding them from view so that you don't have to worry about people seeing it. Or if you handed your device to someone, they can't access hidden photos without typing in a passcode.
Right. So let's access our Manage Spaces dialog. So as soon as I access it, it presents me with the requirement to create my 4-digit numeric passcode. So this passcode will be used in order to manage spaces, create new spaces, and enter and exit spaces as well. So I'm going to create most simplistic passcode, and now I have access to manage spaces dialog. As a
And we're not suggesting that people should use 1111, but that's
no,
just simple right now to see it.
Amongst your family, I'm sure you can do or choose to use whatever you want. So as a Mylio Photos Plus user, you have access to all of these default spaces that we created for you. It is family, personal, public, work, that are based on categories that I can dig into a little deeper later, and everything guest and private spaces. You can edit any of these spaces by going into manage spaces, entering your passcode again, and then editing them directly. Or you can also create your own custom space that I will walk you through this in the second part of my presentation. I would like to start with the guest space. So let's exit this. So the guest space, most of you are probably familiar with the guest mode that Mylio has had since the version 1.0. And all guest mode has received a significant upgrade and was promoted to a space. So let's dive into the properties of the guest space.
And you would use this like if you wanted somebody else to look at your content, like you're at a family event and passing the iPad around and you didn't want people looking at everything?
Thank you, Richard. So guest mode, guest space. So guest space is, by default, it is protected by a master passcode that we created in the beginning. It is protected for entering and exiting. You can also choose to create your own passcode specific to any space. So I can make a passcode that contains 4 twos, and this guest space will be protected by that passcode. By default, the guest user has access to all of the media in your library, except the ones that are marked private. So it's same as a public space that I showed you previously. You can change that as well. By default, the guest user will have access to any of the views except the ones that are unchecked. So dashboard, dedupe, and declutter views are not allowed, and all the other views are permitted to access by a guest user. However, guest user does not have much control over what they can do with your library. You can change that by simply granting any of these permissions. For example, if you want to have your guest to allow them rating and labeling your media, you would mark this checkbox. And if you want for them to move your media around, maybe organize it into certain folders, you would check files and folders modify checkbox. So let's
one thing that I've done at like a family reunion is allow for people tagging. And so, for example, I might have some relatives I don't recognize, but my mom would. And so she can go in and help tag those people. And that's way more useful. But then I don't have to worry about her deleting or sending her pictures and then importing them again. I could just let her look at it.
Yeah, that's a great example. Thank you. You can choose to disable certain views for a guest user. For example, I don't want to have my guests to have access to folders and people, right? So I'll disable 2 of these checkboxes and save updates. And now if I activate this guest space, it will display in the header that I am currently in the guest space. And I will not be able to access people view. It will simply be disabled, and folders view. However, I can navigate very easily between albums and map and calendar and all photos views. If I try to rate any media or label it, it will let me do that. However, if I try to edit or share, all of those controls will be disabled. So this is our guest space. I don't know if we have any questions on the line about the guest space specifically, and any changes that we can make to the guest space. If not, then I'd like to switch to an everything space where we can see all of our library. So in the everything space, in this current configuration, it asked me to enter passcode that that is a master passcode that I created in the beginning. So now that we have all of the media in our everything space, I would like to show you how spaces are tightly linked with the quick collections. You already learned a little bit about quick collections from the previous speaker, but if you're new to Mylio or have not played with filters much, quick collections are combinations and groups of filters that you can create in the left panel, filter panel. We have a number of default quick collections right here. Currently, spaces are only working with quick collections that consist of categories. And categories can be assigned to practically anything in Mylio. For example, I can assign a category to a photo in the info panel, to a media. I can assign a category of a birthday or other. I can also assign a category to a media multi-select the same way. This is category of other to multiple media. It can be assigned to folders and albums and people as well. Folders, however, treat categories a little bit differently. So you can allow for any media inside a particular folder or inside any subfolders underneath that folder to inherit the category of your folder. So for example, in our sample library, we have a folder called trips that has a category of travel. And this folder has a file inheritance of the category travel turned on by this simple toggle, which means that all of the folders inside folder trips will inherit the category travel. And so will the media, as far as you can go deeply inside underneath the structure of folder trips, will also inherit the category travel. So you can see on the folder, if you hover over, that category family is inherited from the parent folder, Fidget 2003, but category travel is inherited from the folder called trips. So this is how you can assign certain categories to different containers and media in Mylio. So now I would like us to create a filter, pin a few category filters. You can do it simply by expanding the categories panel or type in the category that you want. For example, work. This is a category work, and I want to pin that. Also pin category documents. And I want to not see any of the private documents in my library. So I will create an exclude filter. So it will show all of the work documents that are not private. So right now I will create, I'll save this combination of filters as a quick collections. So these are my non-private work documents. I save this collection and it will be available in the list. So now if I reset all the filters, I can simply enable this quick collection and it will bring all these filters back, pin them again. So with this quick collection, we can create our custom space by going to manage spaces, add in a space. I'm going to give it a name, my custom space with documents. I can choose to protect the space by a master passcode only on entering and not on exiting. I want to display only the media. I want to limit this space only to the non-private work documents quick collection. And if you click here, you can see which categories will be limited to this. The content of the space will be limited to. So documents, work, and non-private. So I'm adding this quick collection. and I don't want to disable any views. I'm going to keep all the views, or I can just choose to leave this, leave all the views filtered by those categories, and yet display all of the media in my folders view. This is one other functionality that I wasn't sure if I was going to go into, but let's try this. I'm not going to restrict any permissions, so all of the permissions are available, and save the space. And now let's go and activate the space. And what I see in all photos view is all of my documents and work media that are not private. So how do I check if they're not private? Simply by assigning a private category to any of this media, it will immediately disappear, even though it had a category of work or documents, but it must not have a private category. So when I'm in this space, I can navigate between different views in Mylio. So this is calendar view that is also restricted to the same content of documents and work. And so is my map view, which doesn't have any documents. Actually, there's a couple of pictures that have a category of documents for whatever reason. People, albums, and in the folders view, however, we have all of the media, because I specifically check the check mark that in folders view, it will show all of the media regardless of the space restrictions, which you can choose to check or not check. So this is currently we're in a custom, my custom space with documents with a restricted content, and you can also perform same filters in this space or same search as you can in a view with all of your media. So for example, I can search for a particular TXT file. Let's say I know I have a file with a particular file name, and I can search for that file here. It will show just that file in a photos section of search. I can exit the search and perform certain filters, apply filters of 5, category 5-star, 0-star. So you can apply any of the filters in a space as well as in while you are viewing your entire library. So spaces can be enabled on a particular device in the spaces section on the device in the navigation panel, or on the mobile device in the more menu, or you can also activate a particular space on a remote device, which is an incredibly amazing feature. Because what if you forgot your device somewhere at work? You don't want to unregister the device because you know you're going to go back there next day, so you want to keep that device as part of your Mylio library. But what if that device doesn't have a passcode? You can go into your dashboard, devices. So this is my local device, MacBook Pro, and this is an iPhone that's currently offline. And I know that it is at the moment in the public space, and I can choose to activate a guest space on this iPhone with my passcode. And I know that when I turn on Mylio on the iPhone, that it will enter the guest space.
Yeah, and I'm going to be doing an in-depth part on that next, where we'll talk about setting up devices for different family members. So yeah, that's perfect. Like if you were concerned about one of your own devices, you can lock it or set it in private mode or disable it. So that's awesome that we put that in. And Helena, you can do other things from that panel there too. Like I think a lot of people don't realize that you have full control over that device. Like you could remotely adjust its syncing or, do other things if needed, right?
Absolutely. Yes, you can disable sync on that device. You can disable sync on demand, which would be requesting certain previews or originals when you open them. You can disable cellular sync, so you could only sync over Wi-Fi. You can disable sync with the cloud devices like a cloud drive, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, or a Mylio drive, which is another new feature in this release. Somebody might be presenting that. Yes, there is absolutely a lot of controls here that you can utilize.
Awesome.
We have a question from Scott. Do you need Mylio Plus to tag photos in shared spaces? Can we answer
We're
that
going to
one?
be talking about sharing spaces next. So we'll
Perfect.
go to that when we go into that. So if
Okay.
you are sharing with multiple people, yes, if you need to be doing syncing in devices. So spaces, remember the Mylio Photos plan lets you manage everything on one device. And if you want to do things across multiple devices, then you would use the Plus plan. That's the simplest way to think about it.
Right, but all the categories, you can assign any categories on the free version of Mylio to any media or folders, and then you can use some of the free spaces that we, I believe we enable. It's in everything, a guest space and a family or a public space.
Public, yep.
We allow you to hide your media from your public space in a free version of Mylio.
Yep, you get the ability to hide and work with everything for you. So you can, personal space is going to include family and personal photos. And then you have private photos and you have guest mode, which you demonstrated really well there, like, how you can limit stuff. So yeah, you have all that capabilities when working in the free version. And then if you want to go deeper, then you can turn on Mylio Photos Plus, and we'll cover more of those benefits throughout today too.